stop at the next corner, please.
Okay. Here?
Yes. I have to leave you now. I'm going to that corner there and turn. You stay in the car and drive away. Promise not to watch me go beyond the corner. Just drive away and leave me as I leave you.
All right.
I don't know how to say goodbye. Can't think of any words.
Don't try.
Welcome to Real Lives, Real Stories, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of cinematic legends, uncovering the narratives behind the iconic faces we've come to know and love. Today, we're going to explore the remarkable journey of a man whose very name became synonymous with integrity, quiet strength, and moral courage. He was an actor, yes, but more than that, he was a cultural touchstone, a beacon of decency in an often tumultuous world. I'm talking, of course, about Eldred Gregory Peck, though he'd eventually drop that first name and simply become Gregory Peck, the man who brought Atticus Finch to life, and in doing so, etched himself into the very fabric of American cinema. His story isn't just about Hollywood glamour. It's a testament to how early life experiences can shape a person's character, how chance encounters can pivot a destiny, and how one individual's commitment to principle can resonate across generations. From a lonely childhood in La Jolla, California, to the hallowed halls of the Academy Awards, Peck's life was a masterclass in evolving, adapting, and ultimately standing firm in his convictions. Let's rewind, all the way back to April 5, 1916, in that beautiful coastal resort town of La Jolla. Eldred Gregory Peck was born into a family already grappling with discord. His parents, Gregory Pearl Peck, a chemist and pharmacist, and Bernice Bunny May Ayres, were struggling. Their marriage was fraught from the beginning, and by the time young Eldred was just 5 years old, they divorced. This wasn't just a legal separation. For a child, it meant a fragmented, deeply lonely childhood. His mother, Bernice, traveled extensively, which meant Eldred was primarily raised by his maternal grandmother, Kate Ayres. Now imagine this, a young boy navigating the world without that conventional family structure, feeling that absence keenly. But his grandmother, Kate, she was the steady hand, the emotional anchor, and critically, she introduced him to what would become his destiny, the magic of the cinema. Every single week, she would take him to the local theater. Picture it, a small boy sitting there utterly transfixed by the flickering images of silent films, those grand expressive narratives unfolding before his eyes. It was an escape, a weekly dose of wonder, but it also started to plant a seed, though he wouldn't know it for many years. Despite these cinematic escapes, that early fragmentation left a permanent mark. It instilled in him a profound self-reliance, a quiet, observant nature. Think of it like a tree growing in a harsh environment. It might grow slower, but its roots will be deeper, its trunk stronger, its resilience unmatched. That was young Eldred. At the age of 10, his life took another sharp turn when he was sent to St. John's Military Academy in Los Angeles. This was a stark contrast to his unstructured early childhood. Imagine going from the quiet, observant world with your grandmother to the strict discipline, the regimented routine of a military academy. For some children, this might have been crushing, but Eldred adapted. He thrived. He developed a strong sense of personal responsibility, punctuality, and that upright physical posture that would later become a hallmark of his commanding screen presence. It was almost as if the academy, despite its rigidity, provided a structure he unconsciously craved, giving him a framework to build upon. After graduating from the military academy, he returned to San Diego, living with his father while attending San Diego High School. Then, he enrolled at San Diego State Teachers College, now known as San Diego State University. Here, he initially majored in pre-medical studies and even joined the track team. This is a fascinating detour, isn't it? The future screen legend, a pre-med student, running track. It shows a practical, grounded side, a young man considering a very different path. But there was an urge, a nascent desire to explore a larger world, something beyond the confines of San Diego. This urge prompted him to transfer to the University of California, Berkeley in 1936. And this, my friends, was the pivotal turning point of his life. Berkeley. It was there that the seeds planted by his grandmother, nurtured by his military academy discipline, and perhaps restless from his pre-med studies, finally began to blossom. But it wasn't easy. He initially struggled financially, working a string of demanding jobs, kitchen helper, waiter, truck driver, all just to pay his tuition. He chose English as his major and pre-medicine as his minor, still keeping a foot in that practical world. However, destiny had other plans, personified by Edwin Durr, the director of the university's Little Theater. Durr was a keen observer, and he couldn't help but notice the towering 6'3" frame of this young man, coupled with a deep, resonant voice that seemed to carry an innate gravity. Durr saw something in him, a presence, an unspoken power. He practically drafted Eldred into the campus theater public. It was a moment of serendipity, like a sculptor finding the perfect block of marble. Peck made his stage debut in a student production called The Chief Thing, and the experience, it was revelatory. Imagine that lonely boy from La Jolla, who had found escape in silent films, now standing before an audience, channeling a character, speaking words that weren't his own, but felt profoundly true. For the first time, he felt a deep sense of belonging, a purpose that resonated to his core. It was as if he'd found the missing piece of his personal puzzle. He went on to appear in 5 plays during his senior year, including an adaptation of Herman Melville's Moby Dick. This is a wonderful little foreshadowing, isn't it? A story that would years later become one of his most challenging and iconic film roles. Acting completely eclipsed his medical ambitions. The scalpel was replaced by the script, the stethoscope by the stage. He found in literature and drama a vehicle to explore human empathy and morality, issues that would define his most celebrated characters. By the time he graduated from Berkeley with a Bachelor of Arts in English in 1939, he had dropped the name Eldred entirely, choosing to be known simply as Gregory Peck. With little money but immense determination, he boarded a cross-country train bound for New York City, ready to pursue a career on the legitimate stage. The journey from La Jolla to Berkeley was complete. The journey from aspiring actor to legend was just beginning. New York City in the summer of 1939. Imagine the grit, the energy, the sheer overwhelming scale of it for a young man from California. Peck arrived with limited funds, and those first months were a brutal initiation. He slept on park benches, in cheap rooming houses, doing whatever he could to survive. He secured a job as a tour guide at Rockefeller Center, guiding visitors through the Art Deco splendor, and even worked as a barker at the World's Fair in Queens, shouting out attractions, using that resonant voice for a very different kind of performance. These were lean years, but they forged an even deeper resolve within him. His fortunes began to turn when he won a scholarship to the neighborhood playhouse school of the theater. This was where he truly honed his craft, studying under two giants, the legendary acting teacher Sanford Meisner and the revolutionary movement coach Martha Graham. Meisner, known for his emphasis on the reality of doing, taught Peck the value of emotional honesty and active listening. These weren't just techniques, they became the cornerstone of Peck's naturalistic acting style, allowing him to inhabit characters with a profound sense of truthfulness, to react authentically rather than just reciting lines. Graham, on the other hand, helped him refine his physical movement. Peck was a tall man, and without proper training, that height could have made him appear awkward. Graham taught him to move with grace, to use his physicality as part of his expression, making his imposing frame an asset rather than a challenge. It was during a strenuous movement class with Graham that something significant, though initially tragic, occurred. Peck suffered a severe spinal injury. This injury, while painful and undoubtedly a setback at the time, had an unforeseen consequence. It exempted him from military service during World War II. And this, in a strange twist of fate, inadvertently accelerated his rise in Hollywood. With many leading men off fighting the war, there was a sudden shortage of available talent. The path opened up for actors like Peck, who, through no choice of his own, was available to work. He made his Broadway debut in 1942 in Emlyn Williams's play The Morning Star. The production itself was short-lived, but Peck's performance caught the attention of influential Hollywood talent scouts and producers, including two of the biggest names in the business, David O. Selznick and Darryl F. Zanuck. This was it. The transition from stage to screen was imminent. Now, this next part is crucial to understanding Gregory Peck's character. In the golden age of Hollywood, the studio system was all-powerful. Actors were typically tied down to exclusive long-term contracts that dictated every aspect of their careers. They were essentially studio property. But Peck? He refused to sign an exclusive studio contract. This was a rare, even risky move for an unknown actor on the cusp of stardom. But it spoke volumes about his self-reliance and his desire for autonomy. He signed non-exclusive deals with several studios instead. This allowed him to choose his projects wisely, to maintain a degree of control over his artistic path, rather than being molded into whatever image a single studio desired. It was an early demonstration of the principled stand he would take throughout his career. He made his feature film debut in RKO's wartime drama Days of Glory in 1944, playing a heroic Russian guerrilla fighter named Vladimir. It was a solid start, but later that same year, he starred as Father Francis Chisholm in The Keys of the Kingdom. This was the film that truly catapulted him to international stardom overnight. His nuanced portrayal of an idealistic, self-sacrificing missionary priest earned him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He wasn't just acting. He was embodying a moral compass, a character archetype that would resonate deeply with audiences and become a recurring theme in his career. The post-war era from 1945 to 1950 saw Gregory Peck truly ascend to superstardom, establishing himself as one of Hollywood's most versatile and bankable leading men. In 1945, he starred alongside the legendary Ingrid Bergman in Alfred Hitchcock's psychological thriller Spellbound. Here, he played an amnesiac suspected of murder, and he effectively conveyed a deep internal psychological torment. His chemistry with Bergman was electric, captivating audiences and proving he could hold his own with established stars and complex narratives. The following year, 1946, really showcased his incredible range. He starred in two vastly different films. First, in The Yearling, he played Penny Baxter, a gentle, hard-working Civil War veteran raising a family in the Florida scrublands. This performance earned him a second Oscar nomination. It was a role that tapped into his quiet, dignified strength, his inherent goodness. But then, almost immediately, he flipped the script entirely. In the same year, he took on a completely different role, a charismatic and cunning lawman in Duel in the Sun, a towering epic that featured a passionate and volatile love triangle. It was a breakthrough performance of a different kind, cementing his reputation as an actor capable of depth and versatility. In these early post-war years, Peck was just getting started, but the foundation he laid was one of independence, principle, and a relentless pursuit of artistic excellence. In King Vidor's controversial, hyper-stylized Western Duel in the Sun, he shed his noble persona to play Lute McCannels, a ruthless, seductive outlaw. This was a departure, a challenge to audience expectations, and it proved that Peck could portray darker, morally compromised characters with equal efficacy. The film was a massive box office hit, and it solidified his status as an actor who wasn't afraid to take risks and explore the shadows as well as the light. But it was in 1947 that Peck's commitment to socially conscious cinema became fully evident, a defining characteristic that would set him apart. He starred in Elia Kazan's Gentleman's Agreement. In this film, he played Philip Schuyler Green, a Gentile journalist who poses as a Jew to investigate and expose deep-seated anti-Semitism in upper-class American society. This film was revolutionary, highly controversial for its time. Studio executives, ever mindful of the bottom line, warned Peck that taking such a role could damage his career. They feared backlash, boycotts, but Peck, true to his burgeoning reputation as Hollywood's moral conscience, refused to back down. He believed the film's message was vital, that it was his responsibility as an artist to use his platform for good. His conviction paid off. Gentleman's Agreement won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Peck received his third Best Actor nomination. It was a powerful statement, cementing his reputation not just as a star, but as an artist with a conscience. He closed out the decade with another masterful performance in Henry King's 12 O'Clock High, 1949. Playing Brigadier General Frank Savage, a hard-nosed commander, tasked with whipping a demoralized bomber group into shape. Peck delivered a definitive study of leadership under extreme psychological stress. His portrayal of Savage's eventual emotional breakdown remains a high point of mid-century American screen acting, and earned him his fourth Academy Award nomination. This wasn't just a war movie. It was a deep dive into the psychological toll of command, a nuanced exploration of a man teetering on the edge. It showcased Peck's ability to convey vulnerability alongside strength, a complexity that drew audiences in. As we move into the 1950s, Gregory Peck's career truly went global. This decade saw him expanding his horizons, filming epic adventures, romantic comedies, and literary adaptations across Europe and Asia. In 1951, he starred as the titular naval hero in Captain Horatio Hornblower, a massive international success that showcased his heroic stature and his ability to command the screen in grand-scale productions. The following year, he re-teamed with director Henry King for The Snows of Kilimanjaro, 1952, an adaptation of the classic Ernest Hemingway short story. Filmed partly on location, it became one of the highest-grossing films of the decade and cemented his image as the rugged, introspective Hemingway hero. He embodied that stoic masculinity, that quiet contemplation, that audiences associated with Hemingway's characters. But then came 1953, and a film that would forever change his public perception and become one of the most beloved romantic comedies in cinematic history. William Wyler's Roman Holiday. Here, Peck played Joe Bradley, a cynical American journalist in Rome who unexpectedly falls in love with a runaway princess. This was a revelation. Peck displayed a light comedic touch that surprised critics and delighted audiences. It was a departure from his usual dramatic, often serious roles, showing a charming, witty side that many hadn't seen before. And this film also introduced a young, unknown European actress named Audrey Hepburn. Peck, ever the gentleman and a keen judge of talent, recognized her immense potential during filming. In a truly rare act of generosity for an established superstar, he insisted that Hepburn receive equal top billing alongside him on the film's posters. He knew she was going to be a star, and he wanted her to get the credit she deserved. The film, as we all know, became a cultural phenomenon, earning Hepburn an Oscar and forging a lifelong friendship between the two actors. It's a beautiful anecdote that speaks volumes about Peck's character, his lack of ego, and his genuine support for fellow artists. Throughout the rest of the decade, Peck continued to alternate between massive spectacles and intimate dramas, always seeking new challenges. In 1956, he took on the monolithic task of playing Captain Ahab in John Huston's adaptation of Moby Dick. This was a role he had encountered in his college days, and now, years later, he was bringing it to life on the big screen. While critics were initially divided on whether his inherently noble screen persona suited Melville's mad, obsessive captain, Peck's intense, brooding performance has gained significant critical appreciation over time. It was a departure, a darker, more tormented character than audiences were used to seeing him play, and it showed his willingness to stretch his dramatic muscles. In 1958, he starred in and co-produced William Wyler's sprawling Western epic, The Big Country. This film explored the futility of violence and land feuds, aligning perfectly with Peck's own pacifist principles. It wasn't just entertainment. It was a statement, a reflection of his deeply held beliefs. He concluded the decade by starring in Stanley Kramer's apocalyptic drama On the Beach, 1959, a haunting look at the final days of humanity following a nuclear war. This film resonated deeply with the global anxieties of the Cold War era, showcasing Peck's continued commitment to socially relevant cinema and his ability to convey profound human emotion in the face of existential dread. But all these incredible roles, all this global recognition, would ultimately lead to the role that would define his legacy and become synonymous with his very being, Atticus Finch. In 1961, producer Alan J. Pakula and director Robert Mulligan approached Peck with the opportunity to play the small-town Southern lawyer, Atticus Finch, in the film adaptation of Harper Lee's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, To Kill a Mockingbird. Peck read the novel in a single sitting. One sitting. That's how powerful it was. And he immediately called Pakula to accept the role. He felt a profound, almost spiritual connection to the character. Atticus Finch, with his quiet dignity, his unwavering moral compass, his commitment to justice in the face of prejudice, mirrored many of the values instilled in Peck by his own life experiences and his deep alignment with the burgeoning civil rights movement. It wasn't just a role, it was an extension of himself. To prepare for the role, Peck traveled to Monroeville, Alabama, to meet Harper Lee herself and observe the rhythms of Southern life. Lee was so struck by Peck's resemblance in spirit and stature to her own father, Amasa Lee, who was the inspiration for Atticus, that she became a close friend and confidant. She even gifted Peck her father's pocket watch, a deeply personal gesture that underscored the profound connection they both felt. On set, Peck's performance was a masterclass in understatement. He imbued Atticus with a quiet dignity, a moral courage that didn't need grand gestures, and an absolute lack of theatrical affectation. He simply was Atticus. His 9-minute courtroom summation speech, delivered in a single take, remains one of the most powerful sequences in the history of cinema. It's not about shouting or histrionics. It's about the quiet, unshakable power of truth and reason, delivered with unwavering conviction. If you haven't seen it, or even if you have, go back and watch that scene. It's a clinic in acting, in embodying character, in conveying profound meaning with minimal fuss. The film was released in late 1962 to universal acclaim. At the 35th Academy Awards in 1963, Gregory Peck finally won the Oscar for Best Actor. It was a moment of triumph, a culmination of years of dedication and principled choices. In his acceptance speech, he emphasized the film's message of tolerance and empathy, reinforcing his commitment to the very values the film championed. The character of Atticus Finch became inseparable from Gregory Peck himself. In 2003, the American Film Institute named Atticus Finch the greatest movie hero of all time, outranking characters like Indiana Jones and James Bond. Think about that for a moment. Not a swashbuckling adventurer, not a super spy, but a quiet, principled lawyer from a small southern town. It's a testament to the enduring power of Peck's definitive performance, a character who teaches us that true heroism often lies in quiet courage, in standing up for what's right, even when it's unpopular. Following this career zenith, Peck continued to work steadily. He starred in the psychological thriller Mirage in 1965 and the stylish espionage caper Arabesque in 1966, alongside Sophia Loren. However, his focus began to shift. He recognized that his immense cultural capital, his status as a beloved public figure, could be used for something more, something beyond just acting. He began to dedicate more of his time toward public service and industry leadership, understanding that his voice could advance meaningful causes. Gregory Peck's impact truly extended far beyond the silver screen. He was a passionate philanthropist and a dedicated liberal Democrat who used his influence to support civil rights, arts funding, and a myriad of humanitarian causes. He wasn't just playing heroes on screen, he was embodying those principles in his own life. From 1967 to 1970, he served as the president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, the very organization that had awarded him his Oscar. During his tenure, he modernized the Academy, working to diversify its voting membership, pushing for more inclusivity in an industry that desperately needed it. And in a moment that speaks volumes about his moral compass, he made the difficult decision to postpone the 1968 Oscar ceremony following the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., ensuring the industry paid proper respect to the fallen civil rights leader. This wasn't just a logistical decision, it was a moral one, prioritizing human tragedy and respect over show business. Peck was also a founding charter member of the American Film Institute, AFI, and served as its first chairman from 1967 to 1969. He was instrumental in establishing the AFI's mission to preserve American film heritage and train future generations of filmmakers, laying the groundwork for an institution that continues to shape cinematic culture today. He wasn't just a beneficiary of Hollywood, he was a steward of its future. His political activism was so pronounced, so outspoken, that his name was famously included on President Richard Nixon's infamous enemies list. For many, this would be a badge of shame, but for Peck, it was a badge of honor, a confirmation that he was speaking truth to power. In 1972, Peck produced the film adaptation of Daniel Berrigan's play, The Trial of the Catonsville Nine, an anti-Vietnam War drama that further solidified his status as an outspoken opponent of the war and an advocate for free speech. He was not afraid to put his money and his reputation behind causes he believed in, even if they were unpopular in certain circles. In recognition of his extensive humanitarian work, President Lyndon B. Johnson awarded Peck the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1969, the nation's highest civilian honor. This wasn't for his acting. It was for his citizenship, for his unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Despite his political prominence and occasional encouragement from the Democratic Party to run for public office, including rumors of a potential run for governor of California against Ronald Reagan, Peck consistently declined. He maintained that he could do more good as an independent citizen and an artist than as a politician bound by party lines. This is a profound insight into his character. He understood that his influence came from his authenticity, from his ability to speak freely, unencumbered by political allegiances. He valued that independence above the power of elected office. By the mid-1970s, Hollywood was changing rapidly. The old studio system had collapsed entirely, replaced by the new Hollywood era of gritty, youth-oriented cinema. Peck found suitable roles harder to come by, and a few of his films underperformed at the box office. It was a challenging period for many established stars. However, in 1976, he experienced a massive commercial resurgence with the supernatural horror film The Omen. Playing Robert Thorne, an American diplomat who realizes his adopted son is the Antichrist, Peck anchored the film's sensational plot with his signature gravitas. He brought a sense of grounded realism to an otherwise fantastical premise. The Omen was a global box office triumph, introducing Peck to a completely new generation of moviegoers who might not have been familiar with To Kill a Mockingbird. It showed his enduring appeal and his willingness to embrace new genres. Always eager to challenge himself, Peck then took on the role of General Douglas MacArthur in the biographical film MacArthur in 1977. He spent months researching the general's speech patterns and mannerisms, delivering a performance that captured both the brilliant military mind and the immense ego of the historical figure. It was a complex portrayal, not shying away from the more difficult aspects of MacArthur's personality. The following year, he shocked audiences by playing against type once again in The Boys from Brazil in 1978. In this sci-fi thriller, he portrayed the infamous sadistic Nazi doctor Joseph Mengele, who plots to clone Adolf Hitler. Starring opposite Laurence Olivier, Peck's chilling performance earned him a Golden Globe nomination and demonstrated that his acting capabilities extended far into the realm of villainy. It was a brave choice, a stark contrast to his heroic image, and it proved that his talent knew no bounds. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, artistically speaking. As the 1980s progressed, Peck transitioned gracefully into television and elder statesman roles. He starred as Abraham Lincoln in the television miniseries The Blue and the Gray, 1982, bringing his inherent dignity and stature to another iconic American figure. He also played Monsignor Hugh O'Flaherty in the acclaimed television movie The Scarlet and the Black, 1983, which told the true story of a Vatican priest who hid thousands of Allied escapees and Jews from the Nazis in Rome. These roles, whether in film or television, continue to reflect his commitment to stories of moral courage and historical significance. His final narrative feature film role came in 1991 with Norman Jewison's Other People's Money. In this film, he played a traditional, honorable small-town industrialist fighting off a ruthless corporate raider, a fittingly principled conclusion to his big-screen career, echoing the moral integrity that defines so many of his characters. Now, let's turn our attention to Gregory Peck's personal life, which was characterized by deep loyalty, quiet dignity, and, like any life, occasional profound tragedy. In October 1942, just as his career was taking off, he married Greta Kukkonen, a Finnish-born hairstylist and aspiring designer. Their marriage lasted for over a decade and produced 3 sons, Jonathan, Stephen, and Carrie. While the couple divorced amicably in 1955, they remained on good terms throughout their lives, co-parenting their children with mutual respect, a testament to their maturity and commitment to their family, even after separation. Then, during a trip to Paris in 1953 to film Roman Holiday, that serendipitous romantic comedy we just discussed, Peck gave an interview to a young French journalist named Véronique Pisani. The connection between them was immediate and profound. It was a classic Hollywood romance, but one that truly endured. Following his divorce from Greta, Peck married Veronique on New Year's Eve in 1955. Their marriage was one of Hollywood's most enduring love stories, lasting nearly 48 years until his death. Together they had 2 children, a son Anthony and a daughter Cecilia. Veronique became his constant companion, supporting his humanitarian work and accompanying him to film sets and public events around the world. She was his rock, his partner in every sense of the word. But life, even for a celebrated icon, is not without its profound sorrows. The greatest tragedy of Peck's life occurred in 1975, when his eldest son Jonathan, a promising television journalist, died by suicide at the age of 31. The loss devastated Peck, plunging him into a deep depression. It's a reminder that fame and success do not shield anyone from the deepest pains of human existence. He stepped away from the film industry for several months to grieve privately with his family. He eventually found solace in his work and in his close relationships with his surviving children, particularly his son Stephen, who became the president of the U.S. Veterans Initiative, a cause Peck championed fiercely, turning his personal grief into a commitment to help others. In his final decade, from the 1990s until his passing in 2003, Gregory Peck retired from active screen acting, but remained a vibrant, visible force in American cultural life. He didn't just fade away. He spent much of his time traveling the world on lecture tours, hosting an intimate and wonderful evening called An Evening with Gregory Peck. In these sessions, he would show clips from his films, answer unrehearsed questions from audiences, and share anecdotes about old Hollywood. These intimate sessions allowed him to connect directly with the public that had supported him for over half a century, giving them a glimpse behind the curtain, sharing his wisdom and his memories. It was a beautiful way to cap off a career, a direct conversation with the people who loved his work. His monumental contributions to the arts were recognized with numerous Lifetime Achievement Awards. In 1989, he received the AFI Life Achievement Award, a prestigious honor from the institution he helped found. This was followed by the Kennedy Center Honors in 1991, another profound acknowledgement of his cultural significance. And in a wonderful, full-circle moment, in 1998, he returned to the world of Herman Melville one final time. He appeared in a television miniseries adaptation of Moby Dick. But instead of playing Captain Ahab, the role he had tackled decades earlier, the elderly Peck played Father Mapple, delivering a fiery sermon about Jonah and the whale. This performance won him a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor, bringing his professional journey entirely full circle, showing that even in his twilight years, his talent and presence were undiminished. On June 12, 2003, Gregory Peck died peacefully in his sleep at his home in Los Angeles at the age of 87, with his beloved wife, Veronique, by his side. His cause of death was attributed to bronchopneumonia. His star-studded memorial service was held at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels in Los Angeles, where thousands of fans and colleagues gathered to pay their respects. And in a particularly poignant gesture, Brock Peters, the actor who played Tom Robinson alongside Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird, delivered the eulogy, praising Peck's genuine kindness and his lifelong commitment to justice. It was a fitting tribute from a colleague who had shared the screen with him in perhaps his most iconic, morally resonant role. Gregory Peck's legacy is truly that of the quintessential American hero. He was an actor who transcended celebrity, becoming an enduring symbol of integrity, moral clarity, and quiet strength. In an industry often characterized by superficiality, by fleeting fame and shifting values, Peck lived his life with the same profound decency that he brought to his characters on screen. He wasn't just playing these roles, he embodied their spirit. He remains an immortal pillar of cinema history, a man whose art and life were beautifully, seamlessly aligned. So as we wrap up today's deep dive into the life of Gregory Peck, Let's take a moment to reflect on the key takeaways from his extraordinary journey. First, his early life, marked by fragmentation and loneliness, paradoxically forged a profound self-reliance and an observant nature that would later serve him well in his craft. The discipline of military academy and the serendipitous discovery of acting at Berkeley provided the structure and purpose he craved. Second, his principled stand against exclusive studio contracts in early Hollywood showed his unwavering commitment to artistic autonomy and integrity, a rare trait for a young star. Third, his career was defined by a remarkable versatility, moving from psychological thrillers like Spellbound to romantic comedies like Roman Holiday and intense dramas like 12 O'Clock High. But perhaps most importantly, his consistent commitment to socially conscious cinema, exemplified by Gentleman's Agreement and, of course, To Kill a Mockingbird, solidified his reputation as Hollywood's moral conscience. He wasn't afraid to take risks for what he believed in. Finally, beyond the screen, Peck's humanitarianism, his industry leadership, and his political activism demonstrated that his dedication to justice and empathy extended far beyond his roles. He was a man who genuinely lived his values, earning him the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the enduring respect of a nation. His portrayal of Atticus Finch wasn't just an acting performance. It was an embodiment of a moral ideal that continues to inspire. Gregory Peck's life reminds us that true heroism, both on and off screen, often lies in quiet dignity, unwavering principle, and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when it's difficult. Thank you for joining me on Real Lives, Real Stories. I hope you've gained a deeper appreciation for the man behind the legend, Gregory Peck. Join us next time as we uncover another fascinating life from the annals of cinematic history. Until then, keep watching, keep learning, and keep seeking out those stories that resonate with truth and meaning.